In this video, we're going to take things up a notch and have the MindStudio Meeting Summarizer work directly within a HubSpot instance. This is very useful for salespeople or any team using HubSpot every day. What we did to make this work is add a new property called Transcript MindStudio. As you can see here, it's a multi-line text. What we want to do is whenever this property is updated in HubSpot, we are sending this meeting transcript to MindStudio. MindStudio is generating the summary, and it's sending the summary back to HubSpot and linking it to the proper contact. We can see an example here with Steve Nori, and here's the meeting summary coming from our example. And the reason we got a meeting summary here is that we updated this field with our meeting transcript. Please note all of these emails are coming from Apollo. It's just a test account. These are not real customers, and we suggest you do not use these emails in your own instance. The first thing you need to do is to create the custom property in HubSpot. So navigate to the settings icon in the top right corner, go to properties and add a new property, multi-line text, and call it whatever you want. In our example is meeting transcript. Then we need a Zapier zap. The Zapier will check whenever the property is updated and trigger the workflow. Then the MindStudio workflow will run, generate the summary, and send it back to HubSpot. So the sandwich here is trigger HubSpot, MindStudio action, output HubSpot. Let's click on trigger, select HubSpot, and the event is new contact property change. Click on continue, select your account or connect a new one, and then click continue. The first thing you need to do is retrieve the actual property. Since HubSpot literally has hundreds of properties, not all of them will be monitored by this interaction. You need to add the properties you want to retrieve so that the trigger can work whenever that property is updated. So in additional properties to retrieve, search for the MindStudio property you just created. And here it is, meeting transcript MindStudio. Now this property is retrieved and you can use it in the property name dropdown to trigger this event whenever it's updated. So let's click on the dropdown, search for MindStudio, and you will see it here. If you do not add the additional property to retrieve, you will not see meeting transcript here in the property name. So make sure you add it here first and then select it at the top. Click on continue and test the trigger. You can see the trigger is successful and finds stray contacts. That's fine. Click on continue with selected record. Then we need to connect the MindStudio application. So search for MindStudio and select MindStudio latest beta. You see 3 here because we have it all on our account. You will only see MindStudio latest beta. Click on it and choose the event run workflow. It's the only event. Click on continue and choose an account. In our example, we have many connected, but we need to connect a new account, which is the meeting summarizer. Click on connect a new account. And we need to go back to the YouTube meeting summarizer inside the editor. Click on the app name, then API access, and enable the API access. This will return the app ID and the API key. Click on the API key, copy it, and paste it in the API key Zapier is requesting. Do the same thing for the app ID. Then, yes, continue to MindStudio. You will see this works fine and redirects you to the editor. This means the connection worked and you will now see it in Zapier. Please make sure the application is published before doing it. The Zapier integration only works with published applications. Let's go back to Zapier and you will see this is now ready to continue. Click on continue and enter the variables. The variable here is mapped using the launch variable syntax. We explain exactly how to call variables in Zapier and how to map them to properties in MindStudio in our dedicated MindStudio Zapier integration video. That will be linked below and referenced in the video up in the corner. As a quick reminder, you need the Zapier call to initialize variables in the workflow. So in our Zapier API workflow, we have the send message block with $launch variables transcript. This means that in this part of the send message, we are initializing the variable transcript. At this point in time, the variable transcript has to have some content in it. Otherwise, this will not work. So what we have to do from Zapier is send in the transcript, which is coming from the property change in HubSpot, and then we initialize it here in MindStudio. Going back to Zapier, that looks like inserting transcript here in the variable name and mapping it to the property change. And the property that changed is the meeting transcript. Here you have it, meeting transcript MindStudio. So what will happen here is that this meeting transcript will be sent in and initialized as the variable transcript in MindStudio. MindStudio will then summarize it exactly like it did before. The only difference is that this time I'm not uploading it, I'm sending it from HubSpot. There is no interaction from the user in the MindStudio UI at this point. The last thing we have to do is choose the right workflow. We do not want to run the main flow because the main flow is the one that requires human interaction. The one we want to run is Zapier API.flow. So let's type that in. Finally, click on Continue and test the step. Great, this is successful. Before we publish, we still need to send this data back to HubSpot. So click on the final plus icon and search for HubSpot again. The event now is slightly different. We want to create an engagement. This way we can create a new note in HubSpot and assign it to the proper contact. You can create a new deal, you can create a new blog post, you can create whatever you want starting from the response, because this is Zapier and it connects to 6,000 applications. So just because this app starts from HubSpot, it doesn't mean it needs to end in HubSpot. You could trigger it when a property change in HubSpot occurs and then send the data somewhere else. It doesn't need to be in the same app. But for this example, let's create an engagement, and the engagement will be a note. Select engagement type, note. The note body is the response from the MindStudio workflow. This is coming from step 2, and you can see it clearly here labeled response. Then you need to identify the contact in order to associate the engagement with the contact. You have the IDs, for example, you have the IDs of the company objects, and you have the IDs of the deal objects. None of this is stuff we have right now. What we have is the contact email, because that's the email in the record that we are passing in automatically whenever we use the HubSpot trigger. So what we want to do is go in emails of the contact objects that should be associated with engagement and select the email coming from the contact property change in step 1. And it's here, contact information email. You can see an example here for Gary@lumenti.com. Select the email, and this will map this field here to Gary, the contact information email in step 1. So what this does is create a new engagement. The new engagement is a note, and it associates the note, which contains the summary, to the email of the person that triggered the property change. Now click on Continue and test the step. You will see it returns an error. This is fine because at this point in time, the response is empty, and HubSpot is letting you know you do need something in the note body in order to create a note. If you want the test to be successful, you can simply add a dot at the end of this response. This means that for now, it will send a dot as the test, and then when this is published, it will work correctly. It will send the response plus the dot at the end. So click on Continue, test the step again, and you will see it's now successful. Let's title this app YouTube HubSpot Summarizer and click on Publish. Now we are ready to test this in the HubSpot instance. Let's navigate to HubSpot, go in a contact, and let's copy the same transcript we had here for Steve Nuri. And let's try it with Jan LeCun, a very popular AI voice. In the meeting transcript MindStudio, we are going to paste in the value. If you don't see the meeting transcript MindStudio here, click on View All Properties, look for MindStudio or the name of the property you created, and click on Add to View. Let's go back and update this field with the meeting transcript. Then click on Save. This is now saved, and the AI will generate the summary, calling the MindStudio workflow and showing it here in the note. Let's go to the MindStudio workflow just to check if this worked. In the debugger, you should be able to see the interaction with Zapier. And as you can see, something was started seconds ago. This is likely what we just did. And you can confirm that by seeing that the call is for launch variables transcript. And here in the resolved message, you can see that the resolved output is the initialization of transcript. So instead of launch variables transcript, what we're sending is the actual transcript we just pasted for this contact in HubSpot. This is very important. There's no interaction, so if this variable fails and it doesn't show up, nothing will actually happen. We need this variable to initialize and contain the summary for this summarizer to work. This worked fine, and the summary was generated. You can even see the cost was 0.014, and we can go back to HubSpot to check if it was actually assigned to the contact. Let's refresh the page, and you can see there's another note just added to the contact, which contains the meeting summary. Again, this is in Markdown, and you can ask for it in plain text if you want to optimize it for HubSpot visualization and the HubSpot UI, but generally speaking, this worked just fine. We are now getting the summary whenever we add a transcript into this property back to our HubSpot contact as a note. I hope this helps and that it was a fun journey to see how we go from a MindStudio UI interface to a semi-MindStudio plus Zapier interface to a fully Zapier interface, which is interaction-free. Every time you build an application in MindStudio, you can try to think of ways in which this application and this AI agent can maybe help you in your workflows outside of MindStudio and integrate in your current workflows. For example, if you're analyzing data from a PPC campaign every single day, you might start off as a MindStudio application just because it's easier to get started. And once you get it working to the level that you want it to work at, you can then deploy that to capture data dynamically from your Google Ads campaigns or your Facebook Ads campaigns, return the summary or the next actions for the campaign, and send that back to Slack, Discord, an email, whatever you want. We'll link a video where we did something very, very similar in the description below, and also refer that in the cards. Hope this helps, and happy building!